The Asylum is perhaps the most iconic of all abandoned buildings. Once massive complexes built to house the mentally challenged, they now sit abandoned, drawing in the curious with tales of abuse and mistreatment. While often the tales end up being embellished over the years, Maryland's Forest Haven Asylum doesn't need any stories made up about it. Ranked as one of the deadliest institutions in the United States, for the residents trapped here, it was truly hell on earth. When it first opened in 1925, the 1,000-acre complex situated between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. was touted as a progressive and forward-thinking institution, a place for the nation's capital's ill to be humanely treated away from the hectic city. However, to showcase just how much times have changed, the original title for the asylum was the District Training School for the Mentally Retarded. Patients were housed in cottages named after various tree species such as oak, maple, elm, poplar, and spruce. They were allowed ample outdoors time and exercise, along with tending to crops and livestock. They also had a chapel, basketball and baseball courts, a theater, gymnasium, and rec center. Like, this is what I was talking about. Look at how packed these are in there. Like, because they had they probably put them all in here at the end. But almost immediately, overcrowding became an issue with too many patients and too few staff. While buildings would be periodically added, such as the new administration building in 1940, the entire complex would be considered woefully outdated the following decade. Originally 2 stories when it first opened, a 3rd story would be completed in the 1950s. This same time, the institution would be greatly expanded with a new children's center opening on the grounds. It was shortly after that it would be renamed to Forest Haven. The grand opening had its ribbon cut by then presidential first wife Eleanor Roosevelt, and in addition to offices, the building featured an operating room, lab space, morgue, dentistry office, a psychiatrist's lab, as well as 40 more patients' beds and 18 cribs. Should be over here. Here it is. Number 9, the morgue. Yep, here's the morgue. All they had is 3 body containers. Yeah, specimens. X-ray machine. Because see, right there is where they would have to be protected.
Oh, yep, it's taking me that.
These are old X-rays. Yeah. They're so faded that you can't tell.
Can you hold it up to the light?
No, either they are blanks or they're just with time.
Yeah.
And here's the dentist's office. Some jerk fucking pushed this in the way. There you can see the dental chair. There's another one behind this. And there's some more. And there's some like trays to collect stuff. By this time, the hospital's focus was no longer on treatment, but mere control. Sadly, Forest Haven became a warehouse for anyone deemed unacceptable to be on the streets, and the epileptic, blind, deaf, illiterate, and even non-native English speakers were simply labeled as retarded and committed. In fact, when a nearby orphanage closed in 1974, 20 children who could not find new homes were simply reclassified and admitted as patients here. The following year, the hospital's director made a statement that around 400 of the residents didn't belong at Forest Haven, and that 1/3 of the inmates would benefit from training activities rather than the babysitting they were getting here. He would go on to admit that Forest Haven contributed to their mental handicap rather than help it.
My earliest recollection of Forest Haven, the decision was made that Janice was placed at Forest Haven. And we'd go and see her on the weekends and stuff like that. But I remember one day, my father and I went into the room and an attendant was standing over her. He had knocked her front teeth out and he was putting cigarettes on her as we were entering the room. Well, my father and I stomped him. And I just remember my father picking her up with her mouth bloody and everything. We just got back in the car and went back to DC.
In 1971, the Helen Curley building was completed to house 200 of the least capable male patients aged 10 to 24. The largest building on the campus at almost 69,000 square feet, it is also the building closest to the entry point, as seen by this bizarre shrine of masks left at the trailhead. Honestly, it's kind of creepy. It is here that I also must interject that today the grounds are a part of a juvenile detention center and are regularly patrolled. In fact, after this video was filmed, an impound lot was built in the middle of the complex. Those are fresh security tire tracks right there, though. I will also comment about an alleged incident in 2017 that is rumored to have happened here. A group of YouTubers captured audio of a girl screaming along with police helicopters while they were here at night. Various people have claimed this was the real murder of Lauren Wallen that occurred around the same time as filming. The truth, however, is this. The pregnant high school teacher's boyfriend took her to a field in Damascus, Maryland, shot her in the head, and then buried the body. Before he went to trial, Tyler Tessier took his own life in a jail cell. Her murder was roughly 30 miles from Forest Haven, and Tyler confessed he had killed her there. Some more day rooms, but this one has a piano. Today, the Curley building's design is labyrinthine and hard to navigate, but back in the day, the wing's design was meant to be humanizing, and each had a walled-in section for outside time. But this one's just been beat to hell, because it was all this, so it's at least comfortable for them. Yeah. Yeah, it was a metal detector, you're right. To walk. Oh, well, it just got stored in this hallway, actually. Locker rooms. Yeah, okay. Some old beds. Rain poured on it. Couple old dentist chairs. Here's the controls for its stop, back, tilt, base, preset, return. A self-sufficient building, it also featured classrooms, a dentist office, and its own kitchen. However, in just a matter of years, it had become yet another housing station for both male and female patients. Newspaper reporter Murray Wass was snuck inside to view the horrific conditions of naked patients left on the floor, some in diapers, some in nothing. Look at behind all this graffiti, you can see like the original paint job they had. It's like a winter landscape that people, of course, had to write their stupid graffiti on. Look at this. Patient, room number, doctor, date, contents. So these were like sample, like takers, like so they could take, you know, a sample, whatever. Here's a vaginal irrigation bag. This is so they could lock their cabinet, so nobody could get into it. Oh my gosh! Those are for. You would put that in a lady's hoo-ha to open it up, so you can look at it. This must have been the room of speculum. What is this though?
I couldn't figure that one out either. I don't know, because normally if they take swabs, they put it in a vial. That almost looks like a spit container or something like that.
Yeah, here's some old machines and stuff. This was, so I think they had, enclosed area for each section that they could, you know, go out and get some air and stuff, but it was still, like, watched. They each had a little cubby hole with their names written on it. Their name over their bed, not Donald Trump. And here's some sort of like an IV stand or something. Yeah, there's a few of them right there. So this was, yeah, they had at least like 6 to 8 beds all in here. And now those are their pillows there. And, yep. In 1974, an unnamed 21-year-old patient was found drowned in one of these bathtubs. A bed check at 5:30 a.m. noted him as asleep on his cot, but 45 minutes later, he was discovered floating face down. So we've been taking all the back rays because I didn't get it on camera, but there was security. Literally drove by the building we were in. So they do patrol. We just don't know how frequently. So we gotta be careful. Mini cottages were categorized by the amount of care needed. Poplar Cottage was the step up from Curly, where those who could feed, dress, and use the bathroom by themselves were put. Here, they were allowed more independence and less supervision. However, Poplar was one of the original 1925 buildings and quite run down. Check out these showers. It's industrial. Patients here were treated using a reward system where they were given tokens for good behavior they could redeem for toys or candy. These have, they have metal gratings between them.
No, it's sorry, water bottle. But you can unlock it. Yeah, nothing, no excess. Find anything?
Nothing really, yeah.
It's a timeout log from 1985.
Oh, cool.
Exclusionary timeout is a good way to consequent many acting out behaviors. Some BAU clients have been recommended for timeout in the room adjoining the BAU day room. When you put a client into the timeout room, record the date, time, and all that stuff. So there's submitting Weaver for stripping. He got 10 minutes. Register. Another day room here. And look at, they had benches all along the sides for people to sit. Fold out mattress.
I said it's nothing, but it's purely hell. The way staff talk to you like you don't. I mean, they talk to you like really nobody. I got whipped so many times. I got beat so many times with the frying pan, sit to court.
It's only a few drops, but it's definitely got that color of blood. It's a really strange door. It's like for air ventilation and then a viewing section. But what's strange is that it's just a little room. Could it have been like an isolation? Because that's a bathroom right there. And it's just in its own little section. Yeah, that's an old Nike Jordan that's very old. Maybe you think 80s?
Yeah, 80s, early 90s.
Seems like the exact same thing, really.
Is the back working?
This is Eric's. Here's an old record player. Oh, wow. This one is completely missing its ceiling. The roof is almost gone. Wow, yeah, this one is... It's so bright because there's barely anything left.
Yep, I remember that thing. So the arcade games I thought were pretty close to this. Here we go. Some old arcade games. They seem more like health related, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's like for training. So it was like an arcade game, but it was meant to be a learning experience. October 1994?
Yeah.
I believe that's when they shut down. So this cottage was more converted into offices and training. Seems like.
Moses or Morse Cottage. Yeah, it's like basically one long hallway. Morse Cottage was originally built as an 80-bed nursery for infants and toddlers. While Forest Haven was technically a district training school for children, for one reason or another, those who were not released would remain here for as long as they lived. One of the all too few lighthearted stories about Forest Haven came in 1961, when President John F. Kennedy regifted the institution a rabbit named Zaza. The rabbit had been given to him by a magician, and apparently it drank beer and could play the trumpet, though no photos exist of the pet. That same year, after getting into a fight, a 17-year-old African-American patient was locked in a room. He ripped a pipe from the wall and was scalded to death by pressurized 300-degree steam.
So it's got ventilation, it's got light, and it's got light bulbs, so you can turn the light on, right? So it's like strange. Then you have this. So this is like open it up, and it's an observation.
Oh,
To the bathroom.
that's really weird. I wonder what this, because it's like, look at how they had like, that was covered and that was not, so it was like you could look over into there.
Feel like a commons area?
Could be.
Maybe that's some horses area.
And then this was, yeah, like this was nurses' station, storage. What you find?
Here you go. It says, were sutures required? Yes. Was treatment provided? Yes. Injury, laceration.
So somebody got cut up. What's this on? Department of Human Services. Yeah, here's the two patients. Didn't put their social security numbers. MHT. This is from 88. From 10:45 to 6:45. Amount of hours. So it's like worksheet or something. Yeah, weekly cash allowance. Yeah, the one guy only got $1. $5, $9.25, $10. Total. The total allowance for this whole thing, $36.75. This, yeah, I think they tried to burn them here and just gave up. You know, they threw them on and then said, "We're done." Yeah. Here's. This is this guy's report for daily fluid and food supplement. Water, they had it marked. There he had AM water. Prune juice, half a thing. Corn flakes, something called Gustacal. Yogurt. And yeah, they had all marked how much they had and they took. In 1990, 60 Minutes aired an episode on the story of Donna Selby and Ricardo Thornton, two disabled Forest Haven patients who met there and were married in 1984.
Those are my grandkids. That's my son. And that's my wife. She's spicy, but she's nice. And that's me, Ricardo. And this is a life no one thought I could have.
Ricardo also participated in the Special Olympics and is now spokesperson for the organization.
And I got my first gold medal. Awesome. Took it back to Forest Haven.
A lot of people was talking about Ricardo, and I said to myself, "Oh, that's Ricardo Thornton." I said, "Wow, he's nice looking." And I said to myself, I'm gonna keep my eye on him.
When she proposed to me, I told her, I said, we're gonna talk to our social workers and see what they say.
There were questions as to whether two people who had been diagnosed with a cognitive disability should be permitted to be married, mostly because they had been in Forest Haven.
They were talking, bashing group homes, bashing institutions, bashing people with disability. And what I did was I testified, and I gave my best testifying down there. I told my story and invited them to come out to a handicapped wedding. Come to the wedding. Come see what we can do. And what I loved about the wedding was that we had people with disabilities in the wedding.
Their story would be adapted into the 2003 television movie Profoundly Normal.
I still got it. Honey, you think I still got it?
No,
Oh.
not now you don't.
The only burned building on the complex, Dogwood Cottage may be the most important historical building on the site. It is here that 8-year-old Joy Evans would be admitted in 1968. Initially believing they were doing the right thing by sending their disabled child to the facility that could provide 24-hour care, when they visited to find their daughter bound to a bed behind iron bars, her parents knew they made a grave error.
We went out that Sunday to see Joy. She was not in her cottage, and they told us that she was in the hospital, but we had never received word that she was in the hospital. They didn't think it was important enough to call the parents and tell them that Joy had had an accident.
When we went out there to see her, she was in the hospital and she had bruises all over her, and nobody could explain why she had the bruises.
And I was on my knees praying, God, help Joy. Please don't let her be injured. Please don't let Joy be injured. And I heard in my spirit, you do it. And I said, do what? You help Joy. And I got up off of my knees, and that's when I said, I'm going to take care of my daughter. And when I said I wanted to see anyone in charge, and they took us to the office, and they brought staff people in. And as Harold said, when we complained that we had not been notified of Joy's injuries, and why did she have the injuries in the first place, they said, well, if you don't like it, take her home. And I said, well, I'm not going to take her home. I'm going to see you in court. And that was the beginning of our struggle with Forest Haven.
Sadly, Joy would die from aspiration pneumonia in 1976, which is an infection often caused by feeding patients while they are lying down. Leading a class action lawsuit, Joy's mother would testify on a number of horrifying occurrences she witnessed firsthand at Forest Haven. She would frequently find her daughter to have scratches, cuts, bruises, and chipped teeth, along with once finding her entire back raw as a result of lying on a urine-soaked sheet. She called Dogwood Cottage a snake pit and said one time a nurse opened the front doors to see 80 half-clad screaming women come running towards the doors, which the nurse quickly slammed shut. Another claimant was the mother of John Kennedy Jr., not related to the president. Shortly after he was admitted in 1967, she found him standing naked against an outside wall being sprayed with a hose for unruly behavior, and all his teeth had been knocked out. In 1978, the lawsuit would reach a settlement that Forest Haven would be closed for good, and in the meantime, patients would receive proper services before they could be transferred. Sadly, it would take over 12 years for that day to come, and in the meantime, things only got worse.
Yeah, the bars on the windows. Oh, they don't want anybody getting out. I think this is a kitchen. Because here's yeah, this. Okay. Yeah, this was just a little kitchen that they had, I guess, for. Another day room, I guess.
This building is kind of weird.
Right, it's like they close things off a lot after the fact. Yeah, 3 locks on that bad boy.
The first decade post-settlement saw roughly 1,000 of the 1,300 patients relocated, and the extra buildings would be reutilized for other programs, such as Spruce Cottage, that became a 20-bed halfway house for non-violent female juvenile offenders.
Yeah, biohazard. There's somebody cut a hole. Oh, this spot got torched. Files, and yeah, this one got lit up.
And long-tail shirts to hide my dick. What she wanted to do with me on the street, etc. Offensive remarks, just that. 3 days activity restriction. Look at 96.
More double doors. This looks like it was some sort of a nurse's station maybe or something. Yeah, here's all the stuff. Yeah, here's conforming bandage. I don't know what that is. Some needles in here.
One more.
Yeah, here's a bunch of medical. These are like medication cups. They look like cough medicine, so they would suck their medicine down. Dude. Somebody was definitely staying here at some point. Check out. I wonder if that was them writing all that stuff on this wall, or if that was just. Could it have been people in here? Because it's different. It's not graffiti. It's written on crayon. All of this. Like there it says Bloods, Berry Farms, BJ from SW. This is my bed only. I think this was like a room, maybe that they got put in, you know, for being bad.
Yeah.
And that they were in here, and then somebody else has stayed here since. Yeah, look at this. Like, this was no joke, though. They didn't want anybody possibly getting out of here.
It seems that treatment here was just as bad, as during its 3-year operation, dozens of girls escaped, which prompted a public outcry leading to its closure in 1995. After that, the barbed wire fence was added, and it became the only housing in the city for violent female juveniles. Sadly, before it closed in 2005, at least one report of a 12-year-old inmate being sexually assaulted by 2 other inmates came out.
They just piled all the computers over here. Just tossed them all in. And there's... Oh, that was a TV cage. Because so that way nobody would destroy it. They had it in there. There's another TV cage. Just, yeah, they're day rooms. Turkey. So this was like a little less, now that looks like it's staged. But yeah, there's a bed. Look at, somebody did a Stranger Things here. They set this whole thing up, literally brought in Christmas lights just to do that. A 96 school catalog. There's some more, yeah, like a lot of educational things in here.
The most isolated building at Forest Haven is Hemlock Cottage. This was the original detention center for the asylum, where troublesome patients were kept in 6 by 8 foot cells devoid of everything but a mattress and toilet. It was noted that the patients were usually dosed with Thorazine, an antipsychotic that leaves recipients in a calm and lifeless stupor. 2 enclosed courtyards were used for observation, and those assigned to Hemlock were given more manual labor to perform.
Basketball net. Small plates.
The door, you know, if you kick the door, you couldn't kick them in. You couldn't kick them this way.
Right.
I think they wrote stories at one time. They had
Well, because that says food service on it.
But they had bathrooms, toilets, and sinks.
Yeah, I think this was at least at one point, you're right, because it's got the same door and it's got the...
And they had bars over this. See the bars right there.
somebody picked it out.
But this is a utility room, but they had bars on it.
That's a cool shot. Oh, check this out. Little kid's tricycle and a bike. Definitely a staged shot. Bunch of more paper and books. These are a lot of books are scattered around in here. This old bunk bed. Yeah, they had a lot of bunk beds in these areas. Bunch of pillows. Prior to her employment here, one psychologist was totally inadequate to offer the above services adequately. Here, they had like a stage here a little bit, just a little small one. And there's that's a piano right there.
We're now entering the laundry building. This is just across from the active detention center, so we had to be extremely careful in here.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you can smell the mold in here. Check out those heavy-duty machines, though. Those were no joke. Oh, dude, Forest Haven Laundry. Now that.
When it was constructed, they demolished one cottage, the pool, and a school building in its place.
Oh, wow. It's like a dressmaking thing. So they could mend or create dresses. Oh, wow. That's how long this place has been abandoned. Check this out. Some sort of spinning thing. Santa wash, it says. This is actually really cool. This is something that you do not see in anybody else's video. An old iron machine here.
Another building too close for comfort is the cafeteria. In 1978, one of the workers entered with a shotgun and injured 3 patients and 4 co-workers before eventually being apprehended in a car chase. His exact reasoning for this was undetermined. He could only say he was depressed. Also out in the woods are the ruins of the superintendent's house, built in 1930. The deaths at Forest Haven are sadly too numerous to mention. Near the main road to the juvenile center is a single gravestone erected by families of the 387 patients buried in unmarked plots. One such death is Arthur Argy Harris, who had been at Forest Haven since age 5 and just celebrated his 22nd birthday with his family in one of the cottages. Shortly after, he would be discovered lying in a fetal position with blood around his mouth. One of at least 10 patients between 1987 and 1989 to die of aspiration pneumonia. You see, despite the judge's order of care, nothing much improved. In the 1980s, funding was requested to train staff on proper feeding techniques, but was shot down with continual budget cuts.
So this was like the day room that both, I'm gonna call them wards, but they're not. Like this was then their bedroom,
One worker stated that it would take her about 20 to 30 minutes to properly feed one patient, sitting up. However, staff was expected to feed 8 to 10 patients in that amount of time, and it was conveyed to them if they did not, they would lose their jobs. A later review of Arky's death would reveal in the time leading up to that he had had so many incidences of vomiting that he was admitted into the infirmary for dehydration, along with being sent no less than 7 times to the DC General Hospital for symptoms relating to improper feeding.
Here's the infirmary.
Martha Elliott Infirmary was completed in 1958 to hold 200 patients. It was also the building where 17-year-old deaf patient Maddie Hogue was sent after being declared feeble-minded by an IQ tester who could not communicate with deaf people. The ward of the state was placed in Forest Haven, where she remained for 57 years until a new IQ test proved her to be at 95. For reference, the national average is 98. A judge ordered her immediate release to a group home, but sadly she would live for just 3 months before passing away.
So this was, another, they had all the beds lined up for the more sick patients.
Another case that led the United States Justice Department to attempt to monitor the asylum was that of Bertha Brown, an incontinent woman who would eat anything she could get her hands on. Staff left her tied to a toilet and she died choking to death on her own feces. In 1976, it was discovered patients were using the same toothbrush and soap instead of toothpaste, despite thousands of unused toothbrushes in storage. Staff had simply never requested them.
Read what that box says.
Sensual lubricant. What is that doing here? What would they possibly need that for? Here's an HIV/AIDS thing. These are pill containers. Here's for, I think that says morning on it. Morning, noon, evening, bed. And then here's a bunch of, here's more something like just medical prevention stuff, AIDS, after the test, HIV.
That's a fucking condom.
No.
Dude, that is straight up.
Look at the size of that.
Dude, I swear, if
it says female condom.
You're right, Dad, I was trying to read that.
Intended for provide protection against pregnancy, sexually transmitted disease, including AIDS, HIV. This is actually kind of cool. Bunch of shelves, computer units. So this was a laundry chute here. And this was just like a hamper.
Finally, on October 14th, 1991, the final residents were transferred and the hospital was closed. A new lawsuit for 6 families of patients that had died from aspiration pneumonia was settled in 1994. They were awarded $1 million of their original $20 million suit. Also, as soon as it was closed, the abandoned asylum drew in ghost hunters and explorers. And unsurprisingly, a 1999 news report found that medical equipment, new textbooks, and confidential patient records were all left behind. It would not be until 2011 that funds were allocated for document destruction and removal of some equipment. But if there is anything consistent in Forest Haven's history, it is not following through. As you have seen in this video, a decade later, records and equipment still remain.
I want people to know that my past is that I lived in the institution. The only thing different about Forest Haven and being in a jail is that we don't have bars.
I will never forget, as a young graduate student, I took a walk around the grounds at Forest Haven, and I walked up to this chain link fence, and I watched a staff person bring out about 20 women who were completely naked, and then watched that person hose them down. It was the most dehumanizing experience I think I've ever seen, and maybe ever since.
About Forest Haven, it was rough. It was rough. Treat like dogs. Beat like dogs. It wasn't easy. It was hard. It was very hard for me down there. A lot of people don't understand what a lot of people went through in Forest Haven. People don't know. People need to hear us. They need to hear us.
I don't think nobody deserved to be in that place. And I mean, I'm glad they did close it. It was the worst place I ever lived. They used to take my clothes off, people take the clothes off, walk outside butt naked. Then I was raped by some of the staff out there. I got pregnant, got an abortion. It was on my conscience for a long time. I couldn't do nothing about it, for real. I mean, it would tell you, don't tell nobody, you'll be in trouble and all that. I just kept it to myself all these years.